Hey guys, Boone here. You guys enjoyed the last couple of videos of me doing the Reddit stories, so I'm going to continue on with it. And I do enjoy reading these stories, seeing the creepiness, the shock, the suspense, what goes on in people's life. And we're going straight back to the subreddit, True Scary Stories. My own dad tried to sell me, lol. 2008, female. A few years ago, 2021, my dad told me we were going to a public pool near my house, but we didn't. He tried to sell me. For some context, my mom passed away when I was 6 from what the police thought was suicide, but that's a story for another day. We didn't grow up in a necessarily bad neighborhood, but it wasn't the best, and my dad has always and still does struggle with addiction, alcohol, smoking, drugs, etc. He used to be very abusive towards me and my younger brother, both mentally and physically. He even tried to essay my brother once, but one of his teachers saw what was happening, and fortunately, nothing worse happened. Since then, my brother has been living with the foster family. My dad isn't allowed any visits. I am now 18 and living on my own, though I have been since emancipated at 16. So what happened was that my dad told me we were going with some friends of his to the community pool near our house after lunch. I knew he had been drinking, but still decided to trust him and got in the car. After a few minutes of driving, I started to feel a bit drowsy and eventually fell asleep. When I woke up, I was still in the car and it was no longer daytime. The car was parked by the highway. My dad was outside smoking with some other men I didn't recognize. I tried to get out of the car to ask what was happening, but the doors were locked. And when my dad realized I was awake, he started laughing with the men. There were 3 of them, plus my dad. Let's give them all names. So, well, call my dad Carter, and the 3 men, Jeffrey, George, and Daniel. I never got to know their real names, so as I realized the doors were closed, I started to panic and hit the windows trying to get them to open up. But of course, they didn't. I could partially hear what they were talking about and kept hearing words like money, young, and helpful. And at the time, I didn't understand what they were referring to. So George walks up to the window and lightly tapped on it. And I remember hearing him say everything was going to be okay and I was going to live with them for some time while my dad sorted some things out. Knowing my dad, I knew damn well that couldn't be true. I started to look for my phone in an attempt to call the police. I'm not saying 911 because I don't live in the US. In my country it would be 133, but it's easier to just say police. But soon realized my phone wasn't in my pocket or anywhere on me. Obviously, I was terrified of what could happen, and as I tried to think of what to do, Daniel opened the door on the right back seat, saying it was all going to be alright as long as I cooperated. Then Jeffrey sat in the driver's seat and George in the passenger, and the car started to move. At this point, I was crying and had no idea of what to do. The only option I saw viable was opening the car door while it was moving and hope I didn't die in the impact or got run over by another car. And so I did. I waited until we passed through a more populated section and jumped out. They'll ask me why the doors were unlocked. I seriously have no clue. I'm just grateful they were. After I jumped, I don't remember much of what happened. I just remember running towards a little market and begging the employee to call the police. I was later told my dad had tried to sell me to sex traffickers and they all got arrested, my dad included. I no longer have any formal contact with my dad and have been living on my own since I was 16. About 2.5 years later, this happened. I do still see my brother a lot. When he turns 18, he will come live with me. You can ask me anything. I have no issues answering questions. So originally I thought this story happened in 2008, but it actually happened in 2021. So don't even know what happened to this girl's mom. She said that's another story. This person, good lord, what a life to live. And she's barely even 25? Not sure what the reason was for the dad trying to sell his daughter. Not that there's any valid reason, but for him being an addict and being on hardcore drugs and being abusive, it doesn't really surprise me. But at the same time, it does. Thank God he didn't try this bullcrap when she was younger and didn't have the common sense or knowledge to know what the heck was going on. I sincerely hate the fact that sometimes people are just born to the worst people in the world. How can the worst people in the world be your parents? And then sometimes it's really just one bad parent It makes me wonder, like, the father would have had to have burned all the bridges with all the other family members and stuff. Because how do you go about selling somebody, selling your own flesh and blood, your own son, your own daughter, whoever, and then when that person is reported quote unquote missing, you have to lie and save face to the family members to pretend you care. That is evil. That's a whole other type of evil. That's not, I would not say that's normal behavior for an addict. That is straight demon behavior. Hotel stay in Louisiana. I would start by saying this is 100% true. I was 24 male, working in the oil fields and was called out to Shreveport, LA for a job. They put me in a hotel near the horse racing track and casino in Bossier City. I didn't arrive until late, so the hotel was empty. And it took a while to get the attendant to realize I was there. I had stayed at this hotel before, but something this night felt weird. After unpacking in my room, I set up my PlayStation for gaming, not knowing when I would get the official call to head out my rig site. It was around 1 a.m. at this time. All of a sudden, I heard someone swipe a key on my door, then push the door open. I had the safety latch pushed over it, and the door created a loud boom when it hit the latch. I immediately yelled out, "Someone is in here." Instead of an apology, he closed the door and attempted again. For a second time, the door slammed into the safety latch, and I yelled out again, "Hey, someone is in here." Whoever this was attempted opening my door 5, 6 times while I am obviously yelling that I'm inside. The only time I saw him was his hand trying to fit into the crack of the door enough to reach the safety latch. I genuinely believe I would have been fighting for my life if this person found a way in. I obviously made myself known. It's 1 a.m. in a sketchy part of town, and why reach your hand into the door after all this? I always use the safety latch at a hotel. It potentially saved my life. Yeah, you know this story is real because the story was short. Buddy, ah, I don't know why. I just thought of the Crooked Man. Anybody know about the Crooked Man with the crooked neck? Oh my gosh, that freaking video game. I don't remember if that's like a creepy pasta from somewhere, but I remember the video game. Dang, I miss those horror RPG. If it was me, I would have grabbed a knife from the kitchen and dare you to stick your hand through the crack of the door again. My creepy encounter with the yellow Jeep. This story took place in the fall of my senior year of high school, so I would have been 17, female. I was in a marching band with my high school, and because I was one of the only ones in my friend group to have my driver license, I would take my friend home so her family did not have to come get her. She only lived a couple minutes away from me, so I would drop her off, and most of the time, we sat in the car for an hour or two talking about teenage girl stuff like drama and life experiences. An important detail to note, because it was fall time, probably October, and band practice would get done at 8. It would be completely dark by the time we got to her house. On this day, I took my friend home and we were sitting in the car outside her house, probably around 9-10 p.m. She lived on a small cul-de-sac street with maybe 10 to 12 houses on it. While we were chatting, a yellow Jeep turned on her street and parked in the driveway 3 houses down. My friend had a bad experience on her street, so she knew everyone's cars that lived on the street. So she turned to me and said, "No one lives there, has a yellow Jeep." I had a really bad gut feeling, so I made the suggestion to take a quick trip around another street to give the guy time to leave or get out of his car. She agreed. We drove around for a minute or two until we got back to her street. Right as I was about to make the right turn back on her street, we see the Jeep had pulled out of the driveway and was parked in the middle of the road. We could see him before he could see us, and as soon as our car was in sight, he started to pull off. When we saw this, we backed up and drove the long way around, maybe 5-10 minutes. As we were driving, we passed an elk lodge with the bar. In the parking lot was the yellow Jeep, parked, but they were sitting between 2 parking lanes, almost to see what cars were passing by. We quickly dropped my friend at her house and had her brother keep a lookout, and then I drove home. I had to pass the Elks Lodge to get to my house. When I looked into the parking lot, the Jeep was gone. It had not even been 2 minutes. I thought this was the end of my creepy tale, but I was talking to that same friend the next day about how bizarre and creepy that was. And she had more to add to the story. She told her aunt what had happened, and her aunt told her that her little sister had seen a yellow Jeep outside their house, watching the kids play in the front yard. When the sister had walked up to the car to get a look at the guy's face, he drove off. Because of those two encounters, they went to the police to report this. The police were trying to investigate who it was, told my friend there were only 2 registered yellow Jeeps in our small town. One of the owners had previously been investigated because he followed 3 girls that were walking to a store. Nothing ever came out of the police report, but I definitely think it was a creepy experience. Well, I'm glad nothing happened. Very glad, but clearly whoever owns this yellow Jeep is up to no good. Police already know who they are. They've confronted the Jeep owner, but they couldn't find evidence to stick. So hopefully, pray that when they do find the evidence, it's not something to where the damage has already been done, if you know what I mean. Definitely creepy, but thankfully everybody's alive and well. I got a good feeling about this. I thought it was a fever dream until my dad asked about it. I have a younger brother who used to share rooms with me up until we turned 12 or 13. The years blur together, but there was a wild night that happened before we split our rooms that I'll never forget. I used to think I dreamt up the whole thing, but my brother recently recalled it, and as we were reminiscing over a strange encounter with the coyote, my dad ended up overhearing and started asking his own questions. This one night, after a sibling fight, my brother went to bed early, and I angrily played on my 3DS until I was ready to fall asleep. Around 11 p.m., I caught some movement from outside the bedroom window. I probably wouldn't have noticed it at all if it weren't such a clear night. My bed had a great view of what looked like a massive coyote, larger than one would normally come across, maybe cougar sized. But for some reason, it was alone with some food in its mouth. Being roughly 10 feet away from our house, I wasn't scared at first. Seeing a lone coyote? It must have been shunned or something. I silently nudged my brother awake and pointed it out just in time to see this coyote turn its head and stare right at us. That's when the fear finally hit me. None of us moved for what felt like minutes. Even that coyote, it gave us a perfect view of what was in its mouth. It was a newborn coyote, not food. We also noticed that there was either mud or blood and large splotches all over what we think was the mother. By the time it finally looked away, my brother started panicking, asking what we're gonna do if it tried to leap into the window. Being kids, we definitely thought it was a possibility. So to ease his worries, we switched beds, so I would be the one closest to the window. Everything else was hearsay from my brother, as I was trying not to look or breathe too loud the rest of the night. My brother had told me that the coyote disregarded him, laid down in the grass and just stared at him the rest of the night, occasionally getting up to circle its kid, and then laid back down in the same exact spot to stare some more. He didn't realize he fell asleep until we both had woken up fairly late for school the next day. We ran outside to catch the bus. Neither my brother or I had seen any signs of it other than some patches of blood in the grass. We didn't mention this to my dad, assuming we had a nightmare or our imagination filled in some gaps and it had left on its own. So I write this as a memory, a fever dream. We thought, until a few days ago. My dad asked us exactly what we saw, and then decided to drop a bomb on our heads. He had woken up early that morning, found the corpse of a massive coyote and her kid, and had to find somewhere to hide it before we woke up. He had thrown it behind some sagebrush and cleaned up as much as he could. The oddest part of the scenario was that she had died staring at our window, and the kid crawled its way right under where our bedroom window was. I know it isn't anything too crazy, but it gave me nightmares for weeks at the time and led up to some sleepwalking behaviors which I had never done before or after. Even my brother started sleepwalking. He almost burned our kitchen trying to make breakfast in his sleep. My dad is a retired archaeologist and has quite a bit of Native American paraphernalia around the house, so we tend to joke that all of our weird or creepy encounters we've had are because of that. Get some curtains. Boom. Problem solved. An animal staring at you isn't scary, but an animal staring at you at night is scary. And then an animal staring at you through a window into your house is even more scarier. You got the whole outside world, the whole woods or whatever the heck they are, but you're deciding to stare at me at my window in my house of all places. And not only for a couple moments, all night. I'll probably have to get the shotgun. I'll probably grab a shotgun. Nah, I wouldn't do all that. No reason to kill that coyote. Literally, just close the curtains. Let's read some replies. I feel like there should be more to the story. One user says, "This story is crazy. Even crazier that nobody has responded to this. WTF? Were both the pup and mother injured? Did your dad see injuries on them? Does this feel symbolic to your family at all? Or just a random event? Very sad. Nature is brutal, but this story feels like more than that. Her watching YouTube for so long, then dying there, so strange. I guess sometimes animals try to ask for help from people when they're desperate. I wonder what happened to her. You know what? That's actually a good suggestion. The animal died there. Probably needed help, to be honest. I mean, it was protecting its little one. It clearly must have gotten into a fight with some other animal. But they said the coyote was cougar sized, so had to be one tough coyote. Animals do that. They do look for humans for help sometimes when they're injured. And they gotta be like badly injured. OP says, hey, thanks for the reply. As far as my dad remembers, there looked like quarter-sized holes in her hide. The first thought was bullets, but there is no evidence of gunpowder. And when skinning, it didn't go deep enough for bullets. We were thinking maybe it fell on something sharp or a jacket that could be spear-like. The closest thing to a why is something you said. We think she may have been hoping for help from us. But since we were children, we just were more scared than anything. A lot of our nightmares afterward were of the coyote trying to trick us into going outside to get mauled by different creatures such as owls, cougars, bears, or terrifying creatures breaking into our homes and stealing me or my brother's faces. It was pretty morbid for the following weeks, and she did say some stuff, but that was so long ago. I wish I could remember. Every few years, I do have other strange dreams about her specifically, which maybe I'll share sometime later. Yeah, being a kid, I remember being a kid and having such vivid, creative dreams that feel so real. Even the nightmares too. I don't even want to think about it right now. I remember having a dream where my chest was just, it was like split in half, just split all the way open. Thankfully, it wasn't so graphic to where I saw guts or anything like that, but it was just like dark space, which kind of is even more creepy, to be honest. But I don't know. I'll probably be more creeped out seeing my insides than just seeing darkness. But it made me feel very, very, very uncomfortable for a few weeks. I would never sleepwalk though. That's a whole nother story. Alright, moving to a new subreddit. We're going to creepy encounters. My creepy neighbor was following me to my apartment and asking me strange questions. I was 13 years old when this happened. It was after school, around winter time, and I had just been dropped off by my school bus. The bus stop was about a 5-minute walk from my apartment, so I was walking home when I recognized my neighbor. This man had a history of talking to himself in front of his apartment and screaming late at night. I later learned that he had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and other mental health conditions, and had recently been discharged from a psychiatric hospital. Even before I knew that, this behavior had already made me worry. He seemed to recognize me too because he sped up behind me and kept calling me a pretty young woman. He started asking which school I went to and what grade I was in. At the time, I had a broken thumb and was wearing a cast. He noticed it and made a creepy remark about me being vulnerable because of it. My school uniform had the school's name and logo on the chest, so when he approached, I immediately covered the emblem with my hand. This seemed to irritate him. He started yelling at me, telling me to stop hiding it, as he was just wondering. I began walking faster, and he followed me to the elevator. Then all of a sudden, he started apologizing for yelling. By that point, I was starting to feel sick because he kept getting closer to me, and he reeked of what smelled like substance or alcohol. As soon as he stepped closer, the elevator doors closed. I thanked him for his time, said goodbye, and quickly walked to my apartment. He followed me, which wasn't unusual since he lived on my floor, only a few doors down from my apartment. But instead of going inside, he stood outside his door and didn't go in. For some reason, something clicked in my head. I was going to be home alone for a couple hours. My older brother was out with friends. My parents were still at work, so instead of walking straight to my apartment, I turned the corner toward my neighbor's apartment, where I was out of sight, and knocked on their door. They didn't answer, but he didn't know that. After a few moments, I looked around the corner and saw him standing there, staring at the spot where I had disappeared, smiling maniacally. I stayed there for a while until he finally went into his apartment. Only then did I go to my own apartment, lock the door, and stay inside. We moved away from that neighborhood about a year later. This story still makes me feel sick, even though nothing physically happened to me. Sometimes I wonder what could have happened if I hadn't turned that corner. Would he have followed me into my apartment? Was I dramatic for turning the corner? And should I have just went into my apartment? It's no reason to overthink and think about what you should have done, because you did the right thing, because you're safe and alive and telling this story. But yeah, what a creepy bastard. What a creepy bastard. It's crazy. Depending on your income, depending on how much money you make, it could put you in situations around crazy fucked up people. And in this case, you're in school. You're not even an adult at this time. You live wherever your parents decide to live. So you have to trust in your parents that your neighborhood is safe. And it's unfortunate because all it really takes is one guy to screw it all up for everybody else. Make the neighborhood feel unsafe unless you get that guy the heck up out of there. It's making me consider if I have a daughter, shoot, even my son, just have them carry mace or a taser. Probably both. I wouldn't even care if the school found out that they had it. When I think of this creepy neighbor, I just think of a super skinny, old, smelly dude with glasses and some gap teeth. Teeth probably yellow. Probably doesn't really take care of his hygiene. Just imagine that figure. That's who I imagine was following this young girl. Hey, we got Ring cameras everywhere now. Everybody's got a Ring camera on their apartment door, so thankfully stuff like this is less likely to happen. And even if it does, we know who it is and we have proof of it. I think we got a long one here, boys. So I think someone is definitely hiding in this bedroom. Hello everyone. I want to share some very weird shit that's going on in my holidays in Morocco. It's been 1 week since we've been in my holiday home with my parents and 2 sisters. And from the beginning, we felt that something was wrong. My grandma acted weird and didn't really want to see us. Although there were some family problems concerning my parents and her, she was always gentle and adorable with my parents, little sis and I, but now she was simply mute with everyone. Shortly after we arrived, she decided to leave the house. We were embarrassing her. We decided to ignore the fact that she was sulking for no reason to enjoy the summer holiday. But a few days passed and we noticed that some tools like forks, spoons, coffee machine, food, and other items have completely disappeared. We suspected that it was our grandma that stole all of that stuff to piss us off. But I felt that this was ridiculous because the items that disappeared were too much precise and random. We decided to remain calm and we also ignored this event. But this door, I can't ignore it. It's completely locked. Behind, there's a bedroom. It belongs to my grandmother. At first, I wasn't even shocked when I learned it was locked. But it wasn't a big deal. We just wanted to look at the old family photo there was in. Sorry, whoever typed this up isn't really good at typing up paragraphs. I believe they mean they wanted to look at the old family photo that was in there. Until I realized that she wasn't a teenager, neither an adult. She is an elderly person who is 75 years old. She has literally nothing to hide. And I know that because I perfectly remember what is behind that door. I've been there since I was a child. There's a bed, a wardrobe, and a carpet, and that's fucking it. My parents were not very preoccupied by the situation. As I said, they just wanted to relax during those 2-3 weeks here. But I was concerned about that. It just occupied my mind. Why would grandma act like this? Shortly after noticing this door locked, I felt very uncomfortable. I felt there was some sort of bad aura, just like someone was watching us. It reached its peak during that one night that I remembered perfectly. There was no sound, not a single fucking sound, until I heard footsteps, loud footsteps, coming from the same closed room. We decided to see what was going on. It had brutally stopped, like it noticed me. I tried to reassure myself by finding rational explanations. I know I'm perfectly fine, that I'm not paranoid, and that birds aren't cameras, but I couldn't sleep that night. Sorry, pause. What is this poster talking about? What is he talking about? Let me continue on. After a while, I decided to move on. I thought it was nothing and that I was making too much of it. I didn't want to go crazy over this shit. I didn't want my grandmother to ruin my vacation, so I did like my parents. I completely ignored it. But sometime after, I've decided once and for all to overcome this story. I pressed my ear against that damn door and I felt it again. A strange feeling of uneasiness and intense discomfort. I heard footsteps, much less noisy, just like someone walked on his tippy toes. And most of all, I felt like someone was 1 or 2 meters from that door, because the air felt different, just like someone is behind you. My anxiety from the situation exploded. I was 100% sure something was off. And it only got worse when my mom also felt it. She heard those same footsteps, and my sisters also felt it. When she opened the main door, when no one was home, she heard a door slam shut at the last moment. My theory is that my grandma never left this house, and that makes sense. It has been 14 years since she lived there. She never decided once to move to live in another house than here. I think she didn't want to see us, but she wanted to stay alone here. Plus food and the coffee machine disappeared, so I don't fucking know what that damn door. Sorry, I gotta add my own words because this original poster, yeah, they needed Grammarly or some shit. So I don't know what that damn door is, and it just annoys us. My dad won't let us break the lock because he doesn't believe us. So I guess we will live with it. I question myself all the time. Maybe my mom and sis are just having a paranoid episode from the stress of the long car road. The long car road. Okay, honestly, I'm done reading this story. Oh, they say at the bottom, and I'm sorry if my English is kind of weird too. I'm not native. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You're not a native English speaker. Gotcha. Because I was struggling to read that whole story. Sorry, audience, if you struggled understanding what the heck happened in that story. I'm just going to give a small breakdown. Pretty much, they stayed over at the grandma's house, and grandma was acting weird, sulking, pretty much avoiding the whole family, and they were hearing footsteps behind the door and breathing and stuff like that. And the door is not a door that's always locked, but it was locked this time for some reason, and they felt creeped out about it. And the theory is that it was just the grandma all along behind the door, because the spoons, utensils, and coffee machines, they were all gone. And it makes sense that the grandma took that stuff so she could be all alone in that room and have all that stuff still. But for some reason, she was avoiding her own family. That's pretty much what happened in this story. I'm sorry. I'm guess I'm just not like y'all, because I would have been like, Grandma, you okay? Obviously, that's grandma in there. It's so obvious. Sorry if that was a hard read for the audience. I'm so sorry. This next Reddit post is gonna be 10 times better, I promise. Creepiest thing someone has ever said to me. I, 22 female, was heading to work this morning and I had to stop to get gas. Now gas is so expensive right now, especially where I am. I don't know what it's like in other places, but it's like on average over $4 a gallon here. So you can imagine my excitement when I see a gas station selling gas for $3.69 per gallon. I pulled in somewhat impulsively because I was for sure gonna get that cheap gas. I got out of the car and started pumping my gas like normal. I grew up in a somewhat sketchy area, and I have always been very aware of my surroundings. Who was around me at all times was always something I was taking note of, especially when alone. So I'm standing there, waiting for my gas to finish pumping. I would have gotten back in my car if it weren't for the fact that someone told me I legally have to stand next to my gas handle while it's pumping. I don't know, but there I was. I seen a man walking into the parking lot and immediately take note of him. He sits down on a stair about 25 feet away from me. He's just minding his business. I'm minding mine. But due to past experiences, of course, I'm keeping an eye on everything around me. I don't notice him even look at me once. Suddenly, he gets up and starts to walk in my general direction. But he's not looking at me at all. Like no eye contact or anything. So I figure he's going to go into the shop or to throw something away. Eventually, he gets close enough that I realize that he is indeed coming over to me. He leads on one of those gas station poles and says, "How you doing?" And I say, "Good." You know, typical response. I know this is probably going to be yet another creepy situation, but I don't feel too scared because I have my pepper spray with me like I always do. In fact, it was in my hand at that very moment. However, what he said next really shocked me. "Do you want to get murked?" I said, "What? Do you want to get murked?" He repeated. I heard what he said. I was just so shocked. What do you mean? At this point, I don't know why I was even asking, but I didn't really know what to do. Then he said, "You don't want to have no kids or nothing? No husband?" I didn't answer him. He continued, "You just want to watch the world burn?" I shook my head. I had to finish up with the gas pump. And at this point, it was done. And I said, absolutely not. And as I was finishing up with my gas hatch opening thing, he said, oh, so you nice. I said, yes. He said, what's your name? My name's blank. Don't remember his name. I said, I'm not telling you my name when you walk up to me talking like that. He said, oh, I'm sorry. In a somewhat demeaning tone. He wasn't sorry. He wanted something. That kind of tone. I said, okay, I gotta go to work though. He continued to beg things of me as I got in my car and quickly locked my door. He came up to my window and was gesturing and mouthing, I can make you happy, I can make you happy. I shook my head at him and drove away. Later I looked up the word murked, and sure enough, it meant what I thought, killing, beating up, or dominating. But the fact that he brought up, you don't want kids or nothing, makes me think he was referring to something else. I have to admit, I'm not fluent in slang by any means, but I really fear that it was somewhat of a sexual threat. Google says it could be used that way. Either way, it was the scariest thing someone's ever come up to me and said, and I don't know if anyone is able to provide any further clarification on what he could have meant. Luckily, he wasn't aggressive or anything, but what the heck? I'm glad I got out of there. I wonder what state they're in, where they're at in the world, because the slang, that was 100% slang, gotta be slang. Or he's just using the word all the way wrong. I've never heard anybody say murked, but it definitely sounds like slang, like hunching. But I'm pretty sure everybody knows what hunching means, you know? Or maybe they don't, I don't know. But hunching is, you know, doing the do. But if you say murk in like Chicago, that's definitely murder. That's definitely killing. Or if you use it in like a slang type of term, it's like murking somebody in the basketball game, like you dominated them. You beat them like 21 zip. I murked that boy. But saying that to a woman at a gas station? First of all, advice for any gentleman out there, anybody who has a brain, because obviously this guy doesn't. Don't hit on women at gas stations at all. That's like top 3 for creepiest spots to approach a woman. If she's not already giving you choosing signals, there's no reason to go up to a woman at a gas pump. Unless it's bright outside, it's daytime, it could pass, but I personally still wouldn't do it. I'd rather catch her in an actual gas station shop or store. And then it just all depends on what the area that you're at. But weird. Very, very weird. First comment says, the fact that he kept trying to talk to you after something like that is what makes this so disturbing. Even if he meant it as some kind of joke. That's not something you say to a stranger at a gas station and then expect them to feel safe around you. Another comment says, I had something similar happen. I was getting gas and this guy was hanging by a jacked up truck. It gave the impression it was his, but clearly it wasn't. I was minding my beeswax. He walked up and started begging for money, but in a weird way. After I said I had no cash, he asked in a quick succession if I had Venmo, Cash App, Apple Pay. I said no, sorry. I wasn't even halfway done, but I was scrambling to get the hose put away. Then he said, you single? I just rolled my eyes. I was so done. I looked at him and said, really dude? And he hung his head up and said, okay, sorry. I shuffled off. Like, in what universe has this worked for you, dog? Someone said, just pretend to be deaf. Yeah, funny as hell in these comments. But yeah, there is definitely some lames out there. Now, I don't call you as a man lame for approaching a woman. That takes guts, it's thick balls. But to approach a woman and ask for money and then ask, are you single afterwards? What are we doing? What are we doing? These are the type of guys that are on OnlyFans. They're in their mom's basements, their basement dwellers, Discord mods. Those guys that just sit in the parking lot at a kid's playground. Those guys are weird. What do you call it? They have no social awareness. Yeah, no social awareness. Genuinely sorry for all the women who have to go through this. I have experienced what I imagine many women had to experience, but as a man, this is a throwaway cause duh. So let me set the scene. I'm 25, visiting a private fetish party on my own, and I went there by car because it's a private event. There are no parking spaces, so I had to park further away, like a 10-minute walk. I had all my stuff in 2 backpacks, thought nothing of it, and just went there. I had a great night, which included me being dressed traditionally female, with realistic looking breasts and hips, makeup, and a wig plus mask. Nothing crazy over the top, but just realistic looking. You get the point. Had a fun night, and after the event ended, I did not change back since it was kind of full and I thought I could just walk to my car and throw shoes, wig, etc. in my backpack once I arrived and drive the rest of the way home. After all, I had a long coat and you could maybe see a little bit of leggings, heels, hair, makeup, and also since I'm a man, I was literally completely oblivious to what would happen next. Well, as I was walking down the street, I noticed a man that I previously passed that was just standing there, following me with a bit of distance, slowly closing the distance though. It was kind of creepy, and when I increased my speed, he also just went faster. A few minutes in, I thought maybe I'll just cross the street, but nope, this guy also followed me over. I even stopped once and looked around on my phone to get a better look on the guy, but he also stopped and acted as if he didn't follow specifically me. At this point, my heart was racing and it was so uncomfortable, but my car was in sight. I kind of sped the last 200 meters, as much as you can speed in hills, I guess. And right before I reached my car, the guy caught up. Luckily, didn't touch me. His voice really scared me. It made me twitch because it was way closer than I thought. He said, translated, "Hey sweetie, you look incredible. Can I ask you something more?" I literally physically couldn't respond. Just went in my car and turned out the light and locked it. The guy was lingering around for a minute, eventually went away. All in all, I think this was the most adrenaline I've ever had. And that's with me having the backup of maybe being able to just overpower a potential attacker. This evening, I learned so many new things. Sometimes your body really does not let you just yell, "Stop following me." You don't know your fight or flight before you experience it. A silhouette is enough for some people. Also, he took photos, which in retrospect, yo, this one is worse the longer I think about it. And the longer ago it happened. I am way too careless. If I walk, run the streets at night, I'm a runner. And I would change sides, literally at the slightest suspicion of a woman being in front of me now. I don't even want to know how many women I scared in my life. Even though I do change sides whenever I notice. I am very sorry. Wait. We're not gonna skip over the fact that this man was dressed as a woman with the breasts and the wig and the heels. Not gonna skip over that. What kind of freaky stuff you got going on, buddy? That personally just threw off all the suspense for me because I knew this was a man, and him being a man doesn't make it less creepy. What made it not creepy was the fact that he was dressed as a woman. It was just supposed to act like. anyways, I can definitely understand not walking behind women, especially up the stairs. We all know that just looking down as you're walking behind a woman when you're walking up the stairs. Walking behind a woman, I don't really switch over to the other side because I'm just gonna walk past you. Like, and if you feel the need to speed up, then I might just walk to the other side. But I'm not gonna be caught in a situation that is so rare, at least where I live, to be walking in the middle of the night and to be only me and that woman on the street and I'm walking behind her. That's such a rare situation. In my opinion, it's really only creepy to see somebody walking behind you when it's only you two people in the street and everybody else is driving and it's at night. Now, if this person is clearly following you or you saw this person earlier in the day, then yeah, that's definitely creepy. And this is not to argue against any experience that any woman has had with the man following them. I'm just asking a question to where are you guys at to where you consistently or often enough you're in a situation to where a woman is in front of you and you feel the need to even swap to the other side of the sidewalk? Like, where are y'all at? Like, and where is everybody else at that's in the streets? I don't know. I really only see that in movies, but that doesn't negate that people have experienced it. You know, some movies are based off the truth. First comment: I'm sorry this happened to you. It doesn't matter how many times it has to others. Woman, it's a sucky feeling. Another comment says, I'm older and thankfully mostly invisible to predators now. But when I was younger, this shit would happen literally every time I left the house. And I am not special. This is just what life is like for a woman. I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. Yeah, what a way to end it off. You know, not to say that this doesn't happen now. And then it also depends on where you are in the world. But let's just say in Western societies, there's so many cameras around. There's social media. It's so easy to pull out your phone and record people. About 10 years ago, this stuff definitely happened a lot more, which is why these stories are kind of from back then. But this is still happening today. And I'm really just talking about woman being followed down the street or followed to their home, always carry a pepper spray or a taser or both, and a gun if you need to, and learn how to use it. Take some shooting classes, learn gun safety, get a gun license if needed, so you don't feel safe in your city or in your area to walk down the street. And even if you do, you should always be prepared for situations like this, because it happens. Don't think because it's rare or that you're in a nice neighborhood that it can't happen to you. No, you might just be that 1%. Stay safe out there, ladies. Guys, stay safe out there too. And guys, I'm not going to be hard on the guys because we're already in a time to where a lot of us are scared to approach women already in itself. So, this doesn't really take away from these creepy encounters, but if you ever pay attention to what's going on social media and what people are talking about and just go out, like, guys don't really approach women like they used to anymore in fear of being called creeps. And they're not even doing anything creepy, but it's just that one, two, couple, or few bastards that make it harder for everybody else. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. More Reddit stories to come. Peace out.